To hold our applique in place while we're stitching, we need to somehow baste it to our background. I use pins. If you would like to use long pins, I suggest that you pin from the back so that those pins don't get in your way. I actually prefer applique pins. They're very short. These are about 3/4 of an inch. Some people actually use an even shorter pin, which is about 1/2 inch. Once I take away the overlay, then I'm going to place a few pins just in the seam allowance. Oh. This is why I use the 3/4 inch pins instead of the 1/2 inch pins. Sometimes my fingers seem to be too big to hold on to those little tiny pins. Just a few pins will hold it in place while I take the freezer paper off. Now remember that I placed this on the bias, so if I go ripping that freezer paper off, what's going to happen? The fabric's going to stretch. So I prefer to use a little pin, and I go in between the freezer paper and the fabric, and I just slide it along, and this releases the freezer paper from my applique. And then I go back in and I put more pins. This time I'm going to place them more than 1/4 inch inside that turn under line. When we stitch, if we're right-handed, we're going to stitch counterclockwise. In other words, from right to left, kind of going over the top of the applique instead of underneath it. So we want to make sure that our pins are placed in the direction that we're going to stitch. Those little pins can really hurt your knuckles as you're stitching if you stitch against the pins. I don't think you can have too many pins, but you don't want so many pins that it distorts the surface of the applique. And remember, you're inside the line far enough away so that the seam allowance doesn't hit it.